Hi everyone, how's it going? Welcome to This Week in Research, a weekly show where we look at 5 studies from the past 7 days. The first one that we have today is on dragonflies and mercury levels. Researchers use dragonflies to measure the amount of mercury in bodies of water that fall within US national parks. They are the first study to use dragonflies to measure mercury. Other options would be to use fish or different kinds of aquatic birds, but they're much harder to track apparently, and it's really hard to do so at a national level. Not only did the researchers confirm the use of dragonflies to measure mercury levels, they are also the first study to produce a survey of the amount of mercury in aquatic sites that fall within US national parks. And they found that 2/3 of aquatic sites falling within national parks have moderate to high levels of mercury. Exposure to high levels of mercury can be very dangerous for the brain, for the immune system, and different organs. The main source of mercury in the environment is from human activity through coal combustion, electrical power generation, and industrial waste disposal. The researchers also found that faster moving bodies of water had higher level of mercury, such as in rivers or streams. In an accompanying press release, one of the study's authors highlighted their contribution, stating, "To date, we have not conducted such a broad-scale survey of mercury in the US. The beauty of the dragonfly data is that it is national, covers a huge area with different systems, and has the potential to create a national baseline of mercury pollution information." The next study that we have for today found that the homes of wealthier Americans generate about 25% more greenhouse gas emission than residents in lower income neighborhoods. It is perhaps doesn't sound that much higher, and the 25% is mainly due to having bigger houses, but it's important to remember that in this study they only looked at how much greenhouse gas emission the homes produce and not necessarily the activities of the people living there. Nevertheless, they found that some really high income neighborhoods could produce as much as 15 times more greenhouse gas emissions than nearby lower income residents. The researchers looked at LA and Boston specifically and found that for both cities, 14 of the 20 neighborhoods with the lowest emissions fall below the poverty threshold. Residential energy use accounts for about 20% of greenhouse gas emissions emitted in the United States. The amount of greenhouse gas emissions that a home produces isn't only correlated to income level, of course, but also has to do with whether you're in a warm or cold area. The researchers found that the amount of energy used was low in warm or mild regions of the country, but much higher in the north, central, and northeast states. In addition to, of course, whether your home is in a cold or warm area, it also has to do with what kind of fuel is primarily used to heat up your home, and they found that those using fossil fuel as the primary source, of course, emit much higher levels of greenhouse gas emissions. The researchers further found that to meet the Paris targets, the US electrical grid needs to be decarbonized, meaning that fossil fuels will need to be phased out, and then the residential housing sector can meet the 28% emission reduction targeted for 2025 under the Paris Agreement. However, they add that to meet the 2050 targets of an 80% emission reduction would require much more, such as aggressive home energy retrofits and a transition to low carbon residential energy sources. Not being an overly aggressive leader will pay off, at least when it comes to cichlid fish, a species of fish that form groups with strict social hierarchies in which dominant males control resources, territory, and space. The researchers found that the aggressive leaders are able to lead their group most of the time, except when it comes to more challenging situations. In those instances, it's the less aggressive leaders that are able to bring the group to a consensus more easily. The findings are based on research conducted with fish in a tank, and they basically expose them to different tasks, pointing them towards different directions to find food. And they found that the more dominant leaders, the more aggressive leaders, had a much harder time for bringing the group to a consensus as the tasks became harder and wasn't clear in which direction they should be moving. Now, how much conclusion you would want to draw from this experiment to humans is up to you, but in an accompanying press release, the researchers wrote that many societies, whether animal or human, individuals in position of power, all possess a similar suit of traits, which are aggression, intimidation, and coercion. But effective communication requires the presence of a diversity of voices, not just the loudest. Our results from a natural system showed that allowing alternative pathways to position of power may be useful in creating stronger advisory, governmental, and educational structures. The next study that we have for today is again on animals, but this time it's on wild spider monkeys living in a protected area in Mexico. The researchers analyzed how they would go about to forage food, and they found that they would divide themselves into small groups of 2 to 17, and each monkey individually as well as together would decide for how long they should be going on these hunts and whether they should be switching groups or not. The researchers state that the main benefit of this approach is that it gives them a much better understanding of their environment and where to find what. For this study, the researchers spent about 5 hours per day for a total of 2 years monitoring around 47 monkeys, and they found that each group that they would form for the foraging purposes would last for about an hour or two before either they stopped looking for food or they would switch groups and go with another one. The researchers also found that monkeys decided on whether to stay within a group or for how long based on the decisions that other monkeys have made, so they were significantly influenced by other monkeys and how long they spent foraging and where they went. They believe that this suggests that spider monkeys take into account the opinions of their group mates about what a good team size is and use those opinions to inform their own decision making. The next study that we have for today is on breast cancer. Researchers from the University of Calgary found that the rate of breast cancer is increasing globally, and they divided between premenopausal breast cancer and postmenopausal breast cancer, and they found that especially in lower income countries, postmenopausal cancer is increasing, whereas in developed countries and in developing countries, premenopausal cancer rates are increasing. The study also points out that although breast cancer is thought to be a developed country problem, 50% of all cases happen in less developed countries, and 58% of deaths due to breast cancer take place in less developed countries as well. The study further highlights the disparities in mortality rate between developed and developing countries. When it comes to postmenopausal breast cancer, the mortality rate is 47% in less developed countries compared to only 11% in developed countries. Fatality rate for postmenopausal breast cancer is a staggering 56% in less developed countries compared to 21% in developed countries. One of the study's authors says that early diagnosis and access to treatment remain key to combating breast cancer in low and middle income countries, and that prevention efforts to decrease exposure to known risk factors for the disease must be increased globally. So that's it for this week's show. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the content, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. Thank you, and see you all next time.